They told you it was a flaw. Too sensitive, too emotional, too much. You felt it more than other people. The noise in a crowded room, the shift in someone's mood before they said a word. The movie that hit you so hard you had to sit in the parking lot afterward. You learned to apologize for it. Here's what nobody told you. Your brain isn't broken. It's running different software. And the research on what that software actually does is one of the strangest, most counterintuitive things in modern psychology. Start with what's actually happening inside the skull. In 1996, a psychologist named Elaine Aron identified a trait she called sensory processing sensitivity. Not a disorder, not a diagnosis, a measurable inherited neurological difference present in roughly 20% of the human population, and critically, in over 100 other species. The trait exists in fruit flies, in fish, in birds. In every species where it has been studied, a consistent minority of the population runs a fundamentally different sensory processing system than the majority. That is not an accident. Evolution does not keep mistakes around for millions of years across hundreds of species. So what is the system actually doing? Think of it this way. Most brains run on a standard filter. Raw sensory data comes in, the hum of the office, the expression on a stranger's face, the tension in a room, and the filter quietly sorts it. Important goes through. Irrelevant gets suppressed before it reaches conscious awareness. The result is a manageable, streamlined experience of reality. Your filter is different. Researchers call it low latent inhibition. The gating mechanism that other brains use to suppress irrelevant stimuli fires differently in yours. The result is that more raw data reaches conscious processing. Not a little more, significantly more. A 2010 brain imaging study found that highly sensitive people show substantially greater activation in the visual cortex, the regions associated with attention and awareness when processing even neutral environmental stimuli. The brain isn't malfunctioning. It is processing everything at a resolution most people never experience. The cost is obvious. More data means more processing load. More processing load means faster exhaustion in stimulating environments. What isn't obvious is what that resolution makes possible. Here is where it gets strange. In 2014, researcher Bianca Acevedo put highly sensitive people and non-sensitive people in a brain scanner and showed them photographs of strangers expressing emotions: happiness, sadness, fear. The highly sensitive brains showed significantly greater activation in the insula, the region associated with empathy, self-awareness, and the processing of other people's internal states. But the finding that stopped researchers was something else entirely: the mirror neuron system. When you watch someone else feel something, mirror neurons fire in your brain as if you were feeling it yourself. In highly sensitive brains, this system activates at levels that exceed what researchers expected. Watching a stranger cry doesn't register as observation. It registers closer to experience. This is why you absorb the mood of every room you walk into. Why a conversation with someone in pain leaves you carrying something afterward. Why the news hits you differently than it hits the person sitting next to you. You aren't imagining it. The signal is real. Your brain is doing something most brains cannot. The third thing the research found is the most surprising. Highly sensitive people don't just feel more. They process more deeply. Studies using fMRI show that when HSPs are given a problem, they recruit more regions of the brain simultaneously than non-HSPs working on the same task. More cross-referencing. More connection-making between seemingly unrelated information. More time spent in what researchers call depth of processing before reaching a conclusion. This is why you overthink. But it is also why you catch things other people miss. Why you see around corners. Why your instincts about people tend to be accurate in ways that are difficult to explain. The same mechanism driving the exhaustion is driving the perception. Here is the evolutionary question that took researchers a long time to answer. If high sensitivity is so metabolically expensive, if it costs more energy, produces more exhaustion, makes the environment harder to tolerate, why has natural selection kept it in over 100 species for millions of years? The answer has a name: the Royal Advisor Hypothesis. In any group, The majority of individuals benefit from a fast, efficient sensory filter. Get the gist, move quickly, conserve energy, act. That strategy works most of the time. But in genuinely novel or dangerous situations, that strategy fails. The details that the standard filter suppressed turn out to matter. The subtle social signal that most people missed turns out to be the warning. For most of human history, groups with a minority of high-sensitivity individuals survived situations that groups without them didn't. Not because the sensitive members were warriors, because they were accurate, because they noticed what others filtered out, and they processed it deeply enough to be right about what it meant. Every royal court had an advisor who said, "Wait," who said something is wrong here, who read the room while everyone else was celebrating. That was the job. And it required exactly the kind of brain that has spent its whole life being told it feels too much. In 2018, researchers studying differential susceptibility found something that reframes the entire conversation. They call it vantage sensitivity. Most research on high sensitivity focuses on the downsides, the anxiety, the overstimulation, the difficulty in harsh environments. And those findings are real. Highly sensitive people in negative environments do worse than average, but highly sensitive people in positive environments do significantly better than average. Not slightly, significantly. The analogy researchers use is the difference between a dandelion and an orchid. Dandelions grow anywhere. Rocky soil, poor conditions, neglect. They survive. They're robust. They're fine. Orchids are different. In the wrong conditions, they wilt faster than anything else in the garden. But in the right conditions, the right light, the right soil, the right care, they produce something no dandelion ever could. The sensitivity that makes the difficult environments harder is the same sensitivity that makes the good environments more than most people ever get to experience. So here is what the research actually says. Being highly sensitive means your brain runs higher resolution, processes greater depth, absorbs more of the emotional information in your environment, and responds more intensely to both negative and positive conditions than the majority of the population. It means you were built for a specific function, one that every successful group in human history has needed, one that cannot be outsourced to someone whose filter works differently. The prescription that most highly sensitive people receive, feel less, react less, stop taking things so personally, is not advice. It is a request to run a different operating system than the one installed in your brain. That request will always fail. Not because you aren't trying, because you are asking hardware to become something it was never designed to be. There is one last thing the research found that almost never gets mentioned. Studies on highly sensitive people and social media show a consistent pattern. High sensitivity correlates with significantly lower rates of posting, sharing, and public self-expression online. Not because sensitive people have nothing to say, but because the gap between what they actually want to communicate and what a post can contain feels too wide to bridge. They write the caption, they delete it. They take the photo, they don't post it. Not because they don't care, because they care about it too precisely for the format. If that's familiar, it's not a social anxiety. It's the resolution problem again. The same brain that processes everything at higher detail also processes the distance between what you mean and what the words can carry. And it notices that distance every time.